is a war. It's happening now. It will decide the fate of humanity. The time to choose sides has come. We are the resistance. We are the info war. And I'm not going to go over all the things she's done in her 47-year, and this is an old bio battle, it's more than that now. And she has testified before more than 50 congressional and state legislative committees. She was appointed by President Reagan for a member of the Bicentennial Commission, and she promotes all things Americana. And they've gone out and indexed the poll numbers and showed what I and many of you already knew, but it's good to document it, that the vast majority, between 75 and 90%, depending on the poll, of illegals and even immigrants, period, tend to vote Democratic, anti-gun, anti-family, you name it. And even though it's not in their interest, they want to be pliant. And they just vote straight ticket. And I've got big criticisms of the Republican leadership. They've been supporting this amnesty with the Republican big donors because they're part of this globalist agenda. But all over the world, they've gotten rid of borders partially. And they've just, Europe's going bankrupt. They use the immigrant populations to become the new bureaucratic enforcement arm. I've had members of the EU Parliament on, members of the UK Parliament, even liberal members on, talking about this situation. And if you can get a group to come in who can then vote to get welfare in exchange for voting for parties that will take guns, that will take liberty and take sovereignty, you have been conquered. You have been conquered demographically. I'll be honest, if we had 30 million illegals here and they were green-skinned, not predominantly, light brown skin from Latin America, and they were voting for the Second Amendment, national sovereignty, freedom, weren't on welfare, it's a lot of people, but we've aborted 50+ million Americans. Maybe we need them since Roe v. Wade. The problem is the ideology is pure poison. And if you haven't traveled Latin America, I suggest you go travel it. It's a nightmare. I'd love to export freedom down there. Instead, we're exporting the poverty, the crime up here. I mean, Mexico's a failed state. And this idea that we are somehow hateful and criminal when we already have the most open policies in the world, if we don't just throw our doors open and say, have your babies here free, all the welfare, and we won't wear American flags at school, we'll take down American flags, we won't dress as cowboys or natives at college parties on Halloween. It's a joke. Oh, you criticize Obama, it's because you're racist. No, it's because Obamacare is a scam. So I want to give Phyllis Schlafly the floor here. I've said my piece to break down her tip-of-the-spear coverage that's been on drudgereport.com from the Phyllis Schlafly report at eagleforum.org. You can also go to phyllisschlafly.com. And she joins us right now to break this down because Obama is already, I want to cover what's going to happen if they do this, but then Obama's already legalizing most of the illegals by fiat. So the Republican leadership, A, is being beaten on getting amnesty because it is suicide for the country. But B, they have to be beaten on letting Obama act as an executive dictator. Doesn't mean he's a dictator fully. The office is becoming dictatorial. So, Mrs. Phyllis Schlafly, thank you so much for coming on. You've got the floor. Give us this report worldwide that people are tuning in to hear right now.
Well, hi, Alex, and happy to join you. And you laid it out very well. These people who want to bring in millions of people, they're going to vote Democratic. And we know this not because it's my opinion or because I've talked to them. It's because all of these recognized pollsters have reached a consensus on this. And there's no dispute in it. These pollsters all say that the ones coming in, the big majority of them, are people who believe in big government offering more services than limited government, balanced budgets, and that sort of thing. And you know the conservative movement and the Republican Party are built on restraint in government, limited government, and the millions of new people they're bringing in are not that at all. They have no experience with it. They don't think they like it. They're glad to come here and accept the welfare goodies that our government hands out.
And you've got 7+ billion people that would like to come here. And under globalism, there's no sovereignty, no borders. That sounds like they want to make us the new Calcutta.
Well, I think it was Ronald Reagan who said country without borders is not a country. You've got to have borders, and we expect people to respect them, and if people want to come to this country, they ought to obey our laws. And these pollsters, for example, they've taken a poll on whether you want the children in the public school to be taught that America is a great country. And, of course, the big majority of Americans think that. But the recent immigrants, even if they're naturalized, not even the majority believe that. And they ask them, well, are you for Obamacare? Well, yes, they are, majority for Obamacare. And it's no wonder, why is anybody surprised that they vote for the Democrats? That's the way it is.
You know, I know a lot of Democrats, and finally some of them are waking up that Obamacare was a premeditated fraud and a scam to select interest, a literal looting. But so many Democrats just say, I don't care, we're going to wreck the whole system, and then I'm going to get something free. I mean, they don't even care if they're getting screwed over as long as they feel like they're part of some winning team. I mean, I've got to say it. Democrats on MSNBC love to talk about how smart they are all day. I don't know if you've seen Mark Dice's videos where he goes out and talks to Democrats in California, and they say the most authoritarian things. They don't know that the Earth orbits the sun. The average Democrat has got to be the stupidest person on the planet.
Well, maybe they think they're smart because they've learned how to get free money. And these polls are really very, very revealing. And these people who are coming in are people who have no experience with our type of government. You've heard people say that we are an exceptional country. That word isn't even strong enough. America is unique. There's no other country that is built on the idea of limited government. As Thomas Jefferson said, bind them down from mischief with the chains of the Constitution. And we think they ought to keep their spending down and keep taxes low and so forth. And other countries don't even understand that. They depend on the government for practically to walk across the street, whether they can or not. And they don't know what we're talking about when we say we want a smaller government doing less. And so if you bring in the people who want the government running things, who want the government doing handouts, you're going to get more Democratic votes. Why are you surprised?
Well, you're certainly right. And America was hyper-unique, hyper-exceptional by every metric of inventions, trailblazing, military activity, just on every front, literature, art. We have been the flower of the Renaissance in the last 230-plus years. And now we see all the prosperity going out the window as we follow the globalist, collectivist program that always creates rack and ruin.
Well, all of these trade agreements, which are presented in the name of globalism and getting along in the world and free trade and all those slogans, they create jobs and investment in other countries. They don't create them in this country. We lose jobs. And it's a real betrayal. This is why the middle class has been shrinking every year under the Obama administration. And so it's just this new report that I have out. It's a 40-page report. It's available on my website, eagleforum.org. And just to give you another example, one poll found that 81% of native-born Americans believe our schools should teach that students should be proud to be American. But only 50%, only half of the immigrants, even after they're naturalized, believe that. And you know, these amnesty advocates like to compare our current immigration with what we were bringing in around 1920. And the people who came in from Western Europe in 1920 all wanted to be real Americans. I have any number of friends who told me when they came as a teenager and landed at Ellis Island in New York, their mother or father would say, now we're in America, and we're going to be Americans, and we're going to speak English, and this is our country now. And that's not the way they feel about it today. The ones who are coming in seem to maintain their allegiance to their old country. And when you take the oath of citizenship, you're supposed to renounce all allegiance to any king, potentate, foreign government of any kind, And I don't know whether they recite all that, but it's obvious they don't believe it, because the polls all show that they're not proud to be an American, and they really don't believe in the type of government, of limited government, that made our country the most prosperous and the freest country on the face of the earth.
That's right. You can't argue with the cold, hard, scientific, sociological, geopolitical facts. I want to go to break here and come back and get into some more of the poll numbers that are on the site for everybody that wants to go check them out. EagleForum.org. Absolutely essential. Phyllis Schlafly is our guest right now. And when we come back, I'm going to let her continue to get into the battle. What's happening currently on Capitol Hill? Tireless fighter. I guess it's more than 60 years she's been battling, 89 years old, and joining us today, as sharp as ever. It's the same age as my grandmother, and is battling the tyrants here today. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say it again. Nobody's got open borders like we do. Nobody brings in foreigners and throws them right on welfare.
You are watching the best of the Alex Jones Show, weekdays from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central. Watch live at Infowars.com/show or become a member of InfoWarsNews.com and help us take resistance to the next level.
Phyllis Schlafly, by the way, is a constitutional lawyer and, of course, a mother who had, I think it's 6 children. And she's had a whole bunch of best-selling books. We're going to talk about her newest bestseller, where Obama is waging war on the First Amendment, not just the others. Religious freedom is within the First Amendment. We're going to talk to her about that in the next segment. In the short one, though, Phyllis, please, because you're pausing and letting me jump in, I want you to roll here because you've got all the deep data and the research. Break down what it means if they get this next crop of illegals legalized. Obviously, then the next group, the next, we're in total checkmate politically, because these folks are voting in a collectivist manner. And I've tried to reach out to the, quote, immigrant population with some success, but we just can't reach enough of them. A, is there any way to turn this around? B, how do we beat it? And what's going on in Washington?
Thank goodness for talk radio, because the mainstream media is concealing the whole thing. And there are 2 powerful lobbying groups that are pushing for more illegal and legal immigration. And they are the big business crowd who want the cheap labor, and then, of course, the Democrats who want the vote. And my report, which is now available on EagleForum.org, it's 40 pages. There's a lot of statistical stuff. If you want the abbreviated every man's version, you can ask for my Phyllis Schlafly report called Does the Republican Party Have a Future? But in any event, what these polls consistently show is that 3/4 of the Hispanics coming in want a bigger government providing more services. I'm talking about services like health care, Obamacare, and only a tiny percentage even understand or want a smaller government. And you know that if we want to leave a country of freedom and prosperity to our children and grandchildren, we've got to cut down the size of government, stop these executive actions that Obama is taking on his own, which he is doing unilaterally and says he can do whatever he wants with his pen. And we have to realize that these people coming in, the overwhelming majority of them want the government providing big services, and which is, of course, very costly in every way.
Expanding on that, look at what a monumental fraud and a deception Obamacare is. Everything that's being pushed is really bad for the overall population, bad for common sense, bad for fairness. But still, people that are part of the Democratic Party cult just don't care. They just think they've won. And then you've got the people like Boehner and others that are bought off by the same interest. I mean, what do we do about this?
Well, the facts are so overwhelming. For example, the Congressional Budget Office, which certainly is not a right-wing source, said that Obamacare is going to cost us over 2 million jobs, and mostly by companies reducing the number of hours that their employees can work. And the Obama administration tried to put a happy face on this by saying, oh, that's great. People will have more free time. They'll be able to do more fun things that they want to do when they're not working. believe in work and full-time work, and we hope guys will have a good job full-time that's going to be able to support his family. But that isn't what Obama wants. He wants to cut the amount of work people are doing, so they're working less hours, getting less money, and then they have their insurance paid for by the taxpayers. It's all so rotten, Alex. And the high-handed dictatorial way that Obama's doing it is amazing. But these polls are very compelling in showing what the people think about this. And they're not voting for amnesty. They're voting for handouts by the government. And they get that by voting Democratic.
And then they'll support literally making those of us that produce their slaves, and then George Soros and Warren Buffett, big constituents of the Democrats and big recipients of corporate welfare, and then they write the laws to be exempt from the taxes. They're lobbying to raise taxes on the middle class. This takes us back to a democracy where two wolves can vote to eat the sheep for dinner.
Yeah, it'd be a joke if it weren't so really tragic. The way they are manipulating the people and making them think that the government is the source of goodness and money, and the number of people who are now on food stamps, the number of people who get housing supplements, the EITC, the Earned Income Tax Credit that just gives you a bigger tax-free refund than you were entitled to otherwise.
The globalists have controlled the mainstream media for a long time, but now they're expanding, making the weaponization even more vicious and deceptive. All the major networks are state-run.
We are partnering this year with the NFL.
The NFL has become a political weapon against the Second Amendment and pushes Obamacare. MSNBC tells us that our children belong to the state.
We have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families, and recognize that kids belong to whole communities.
The brainwashing media machine has been turned up on high, and it's time for humanity to double down on the true people's media and strike back against the tyrants that are destroying our civilization with their lies and fraud. We are the resistance. You are the resistance. You are the info war. It is more important than ever to realize that we are not the alternative media. We are the true media. The establishment dinosaur press is dying.
We are in an information war, and we are losing that war.
Join us at InfoWarsNews.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. Members can share their memberships with up to 11 people. By subscribing, you will literally be buying war bonds in the info war to expand our operation in the face of the tyrants. Join us at PrisonPlanet.tv.